New Mexico Crime Files, a deep dive into the archives, shocking and notorious cases, the arrests and what led to them, and what happened to the suspect. Here are your hosts, Dean Staley and Jessica Garate.
Welcome back to another episode of New Mexico Crime Files. I'm KRQE News' Dean Staley, along with Jessica Garate.
Always a pleasure to be here, and always fun, too. We're going to dive into some really interesting cases and share with our listeners and viewers today.
And this first story we're going to take a look at, this crime is, here's the interesting part. Chases and police chases are not uncommon in Albuquerque, in New Mexico, anywhere in the country, right? They're the stuff that news stations follow all the time, and we get our share of them over the course of the year. But this one is a little crazier than most.
You know, this one was interesting because, you know, in our newsroom, we're listening to scanners and we're trying to figure out, we're like, wait, there's a scene in the valley, there's a scene at Uptown, and then we're trying to figure out, okay, it's a chase and trying to piece it all together. So it took us a little second to realize, okay, they're after this one guy who is just causing complete chaos from one end of the city to the other. His name was David Barber. He was in an RV, and this happened back in 2017. The sad thing about this is when you have chases that are at this, at some point someone's going to get hurt, and someone did and ended up dying during this chase. So we have video of the whole chase unfolding throughout the city. This is Lizzie Mitri from 2017.
Good evening. Video shows the RV speeding all over the city, from the North Valley to Uptown and from downtown to the west side.
The chase ended with a deadly crash when police did a pit maneuver and the RV crashed into oncoming traffic, killing an innocent driver. News 13's Lizzie Mitri has the dramatic video of this crosstown chase.
Dean, police say David Barber, a wanted man, was behind the wheel of the RV, swerving and speeding throughout Albuquerque for about an hour.
911 emergency.
There's an RV driving crazy recklessly on Montgomery. It had stuff hanging off of it, and it was running cars off the road. There was 17 police cars chasing this RV, and he hit us.
Dangerous driving all over Albuquerque. It started at an RV park near Edith and Osuna.
Suspect, step out with your hands up and empty.
Police had been after David Barber, a suspected thief with warrants, for about a month. Last time, he got away. And when officers surrounded him 2 months ago, he tried again.
Stop right there! Please, don't move! I told you.
He led officers to Uptown, where surveillance shows the RV smash into the entrance of the Target parking lot. Too tight of a squeeze, so the RV backs up, nearly hitting a police officer. Here's the view from his lapel camera. That's when APD deemed Barber a danger, officially authorizing a chase. Officers followed close behind as the RV almost hit a motorcyclist. And later,
stop right here. Right there.
Went straight over a roundabout at 8th and Central. At one point, the RV made a quick left, and the officer behind it got hit by an SUV. The chase ended for this patrol car when
Did I just hit a spike belt? Yep.
a spike belt they were not expecting.
Idiot! Who the was that?
Finally, in an attempt to stop the RV near Coors and Irving, police clipped the back of it. The RV went into oncoming traffic and crashed into a car. The driver, Tito Pacheco, later died. Barber tried to run, but police surrounded him after he hopped into a Jeep. Even after the arrest, officers were on scene for hours, beginning the investigation, surveying the damage, wrecked car after car. Barber is still in the Bernalillo County Jail, being held without bond on unrelated cases. He has yet to be charged for this chase or for Pacheco's death. Dean, back to you.
All right, Lizzie, thank you. Police also arrested Barber's girlfriend, Stephanie Pacheco. A police report shows just a month earlier, she told officers that Barber knew he was wanted and would avoid going back to jail at any cost.
So this is absolutely one of the craziest chases you will ever see. And for people who don't know the Albuquerque Metro, this starts in the South Valley, which is fairly rural. all the way up to Uptown, which is this incredibly densely populated commercial district. We have two of the city's biggest malls there. We have an outdoor mall. You saw the Target there. And so they chase him there without regard to anyone in these densely populated, like flying down the streets in this RV. And then you saw he tries to go into the parking garage, which you think, well, that's sort of comical. And then he almost backs over a police officer trying to get out of there and almost crashes into a cop car. From there, down through the very heart of Albuquerque. This is the old Route 66, which is the main drag through Albuquerque, east to west, and literally driving, incredible speeds in an RV, running people off the road and hitting cars as he goes through that roundabout, right over the top of that roundabout at 8th Street, all the way onto the west side. Just a crazy, crazy scene.
And it ends, one thing that stands out to me is this whole video, as you're explaining, going through that entire route that he took. There's just car after car that he comes close to or sideswipes. He just caused so much destruction in our city. And this is a tough one, too, because, police are like, do we engage because he's so out of control? But he's in this massive RV. They need to get him off the streets. And so when they do the pit maneuver, which is on a really busy stretch of the west side, so it's right there at near Coors and Paseo. When they do that, the RV spins and hits Mr. Tito Pacheco, and a really sad ending to this whole thing. But the guy you can just see the desperation and just no care for anyone else. So the way this case unfolded, later on, Judge Brett Lovelace dismissed the first-degree murder charge in Barber's case, citing murky legal precedent. And then the state Supreme Court had to jump in, and it ruled that drivers that cause deadly crashes while fleeing from police could be charged with murder. And that is this is a weird one, because do you get a stiffer penalty and a stiffer charge with murder because you're running from police? And that's one where you hear attorneys saying, well, their intent isn't to go out and kill someone. It was because of this pit maneuver that caused him to hit, where others are saying, hey, if he would be following the law, this would have never happened.
Yeah, and it is an interesting precedent where there's this idea that so he wasn't in this case trying to hurt anybody, but once you create these circumstances that you are liable for that sort of charge. So ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled that they can be charged with murder, and Barber pleaded guilty in this case to second-degree murder and got 20 years in prison. So he's still behind bars on this charge. For all of the damage. And we should mention, too, that Tito Pacheco's family sued because they felt that there was a big mistake on the part of Albuquerque police officers by pitting him on this busy road, and then the RV collides with Tito Pacheco's car. So they got $500,000 in that settlement.
This case, I think, really shows it brought a lot of change in showing, hey, you should be charged with murder. This went to the state Supreme Court, and we've seen cases like this where people have been killed while police are chasing them. I can think of two others off the top of my head where now this really sets it straight, and people are going to do this.
The murder charge is on the table. Yeah. Well, we've all seen bank robbers. We've seen armed robbers. This next story that we're going to visit in just a moment has to do with a bank robber who also was an armed robber who knocked off a business, who has one of the most obvious sort of disabilities that you would think he's almost impossible not to identify. He's just so obviously who is, and he is who he is, and that's how he got caught. So we'll bring you that story when we come back.
We'll be right back.
New Mexico Crime Files was made possible by Medrano Struck Law Firm, local attorneys based here in Albuquerque, committed to providing personalized legal services, including free consultations. Call 505-217-2200 or visit MedranoStruckLaw.com today. Now back to New Mexico Crime Files.
And welcome back. Dean, through the many years covering bank thefts in the metro area, the FBI is known for coming up with clever names for some of the bandits to make them really stick out. So I've covered the Snaggletooth Bandit. I've covered, they always say bearded bandit. They try to come up something different.
Wasn't there a khaki bandit? I want to
Khaki
say
bandit.
He was always wearing khakis during his robberies. Yeah.
Yeah. So they always come up with some ways to distinguish these bandits to try to catch them.
Yeah.
So this case goes back to January of 2008. So we're going back a while on this one. But this is a man robbing an Albuquerque bank, and he's pretty easily identifiable if you know this man.
Yeah, and the interesting part is that it didn't seem to slow him down. I mean, he's pretty identifiable for a personal problem that he has. But so he robbed the bank. He also robbed a business, and I think he was driving the van that he stole from that business when he robbed the bank. And the other weird part about it is the tip didn't come from Albuquerque. This guy was so identifiable that people in Kansas City said, "Oh, we know that guy." Yeah, and that's where the tip came from.
Obviously, he was known for doing some of this stuff. He's 30 years old, and he was from Kansas City, Missouri. And he was dressed like a ninja.
Yeah.
And then I'll show you, let's watch the video, and you can see his other identifiable thing that he has. So
yeah, take a look.
This is the surveillance video that captured so much attention. A man on a crutch, firing a gun, and robbing this Albuquerque bank.
The physical disabilities that he had, I think, made him a little more obvious.
The FBI says the video led to several tips. Days after the robbery here in Albuquerque, news of the bank surveillance tape started circulating in Kansas City, Missouri. That's where a man named Ben says he recognized the bank robber as a man who likes to play poker at a Kansas City casino.
Every feature on this guy, it was obvious it was him. Searched on YouTube and typed in crutch bandit.
FBI agents say that this man robbed a bank of Albuquerque yesterday morning.
Saw your guys' story, and I knew right then when I watched the video that it was him.
Ben says the man's name is Khoa.
It's Khoa.
The same man named in this federal arrest warrant affidavit arrested today in Kansas City. The FBI says 2 bank employees there also recognized the man in the surveillance video.
At this point, he's facing charges of bank robbery, and there'll probably be, I'm assuming, a number of state and local charges.
Now we've learned Khoa Luong was allegedly involved in at least 2 more crimes. An armed robbery at this Albuquerque nail salon 2 days before the bank robbery, and a high-speed chase near Amarillo, Texas. That's where Luong allegedly tried to run from police the same day as the Albuquerque robbery at speeds in excess of 140 miles an hour. Luong was eventually arrested, but he eventually bonded out and went back home to Missouri.
He'll be brought back to Albuquerque to face the bank robbery charges.
All right, so this one was back in 2008. 30-year-old Khoa Luong. He has this disability. It turns out he had survived polio, so he was on a crutch his entire life, had polio as a younger man and survived it, but had this disability that he lived with and thought nothing of robbing places where they had security cameras and thinking he might get away with this. That's kind of crazy to think of. And
especially in this day and age where you just circulate those wanted posters throughout the FBI. I'm sure his face, didn't take long, as we just showed you, that Kansas City, Missouri is like, hey, Albuquerque has our guy.
Well, and also you think about it, if you're a really thoughtful bank robber, which I don't know how many there are, but you're not out in public. I mean, this guy apparently spent a lot of time at the casinos in Kansas City, Missouri, gambling. So he knew people knew him, and he had this disability. So I think people but they might even have known he was a polio survivor, and that, they might even have known details about it, but they certainly knew what he looked like and what he walked like, and that he had this crutch. So it's not often that you get a call from out of state saying, "Oh, I know who that guy is." That's kind of a crazy part of this story.
It is, and he of course was known as, he was dubbed the crutch bandit, and that got quickly spread around, and it led to him.
So he pleaded guilty in this case to the armed robbery of that bank and got 18 years in federal prison. And we should remind our viewers, federal prison is day for day. There's no good time. There's no scaling back your sentence. So that means 18 years steady in federal prison. Yeah, no early release.
His attorney explained in court that part of the reason he robbed the bank was because he was tired of being teased about his disability. So that was the defense he was trying to use in court.
Yeah, that was a strange one. All right, so when we come back, we've got another story that involves a drunk driver. This is one of those crimes that is heartbreaking in our state because we have such a big problem with this. It takes lives, it ruins families. It's just a nightmare that we deal with all the time. This particular drunk driver and the video of police chasing him actually shows this driver running over himself with his own pickup truck, which has to do with apparently how intoxicated he was and how desperate he was to get away.
And we'll have that when we come back. And welcome back, Dean. You know, we report on so many drunk drivers that hurt people, kill people. In this case, the drunk driver hurt himself, and it's kind of unbelievable video.
Yeah, this is one of those unexpected moments where when the police are chasing someone and they finally get them to stop, you think, okay, what's going to happen now? They're going to jump out with a gun, or they're going to jump out and take off. And this guy actually ends up running over himself with his own pickup truck, which is something you maybe see once in in a decade, something crazy like this happen.
It really is. It's very odd on how it all unfolded. It unfolded really quickly. This is back from November 2008, and state police dash cam caught him swerving in and out of traffic, and then they actually ends with him. He finally stops, and when he stops, he tries to get out. This truck stops him.
The truck is still moving,
yes,
right? So he gets
yes.
Pulled under the truck for a moment.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the video. This was done by Dave Bowman. This is at the time when Roy Aguilar changed his plea. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that.
He's notorious for stumbling out of his pickup in a drunken stupor and being run over by it. But Roy Aguilar faces jail time for the frightening high-speed chase before the pratfall caught on police tape. Today, Aguilar pleaded guilty to a series of charges. News 13's Dave Bowman is in the Newsplex with more.
Judge George Eichwald told Roy Aguilar he faces 2 years and 88 days in jail. He'll be sentenced in mid to late July. Now, Aguilar pleaded guilty to fleeing police, drunk driving, and driving with a suspended license. The state actually suspended Aguilar's license because he twice was stopped on traffic charges, then blew off judges, never showing up in court, never paying a fine. Aguilar walked away from court today without a limp. Contrast that to November 23rd. He fell out of his pickup truck and then was run over by it and headed to the hospital before going to jail. The Pratt was before the chase, and the prosecutor in the case said in the chase, every driver in Aguilar's path was in danger. Well, after pleading guilty today, Aguilar did not disagree. Do you feel badly or have any remorse about what happened?
Yeah, it was a mistake, and I feel badly about it, and I hope that I can put this behind me and move on with my life.
Before ending the plea hearing, Judge Eichwald told Aguilar he'll see him in 6 to 8 weeks for the sentencing and warned no drinking until then. Back to you.
Hey, Dave, at the time of his arrest, Aguilar's blood alcohol level was 0.16, double the legal limit.
All right, so one thing that strikes me about this story is when you see the video, that's pretty shocking, and he's lucky he didn't get killed. I mean, no one wants to see anyone hurt, even someone who's driving drunk. So lucky he didn't get hurt worse in that accident when he finally got out of the truck or fell out of the truck. The other thing, though, that struck me is you hear the reporter talking to him, and he really sounds like, hey, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. And you get the sense of like, okay, maybe this person has learned their lesson. They were very drunk driving, had no business being on the road. You're terrified watching the other cars on the road when he's going head to head with other cars, and you think, oh my God, this is going to be a horrific crash. But you really think that this is the last time in talking to him that this is going to happen with him, right?
Yes, and when the reporter's asking him, he's like, yeah, I just want to put this behind me, keep moving forward. And it felt pretty sincere, and it looked like he had cleaned up and was going to be on the path for sobriety and maybe learned his lesson.
Yeah, and the legal part of this, so this was 2008. 2009, he has a change of plea hearing where he pleads guilty to the charge. So he's saying, was going to fight the charge and then says, no, I'm going to plead guilty to this. So that was the outcome of this event. He gets 364 days in jail for his first DWI. And as we mentioned earlier, that's an official designation, first DWI offense. And that puts you sort of in this system, or the next one you get more time. The third one is even more, so that the state is tracking how many times you've been in trouble doing this. And 364 days means this is not a felony. It's 1 day shy of a felony, right? So it's still a misdemeanor charge, which I find crazy sometimes, that in terms of how many people were put at risk that this wasn't a felony. So then you think, okay, so he pleaded guilty. He got his less than a year in jail. But then in 2011, he's arrested and convicted again for drunk driving, but this is counted as his first one. So we're baffled. We're still not clear why the court system didn't count this as that one as his second.
Like, he gets a big break by doing that. I mean, it's not elevated, and they, and it's awful too, because you're thinking, okay, you've already done this and caused this big commotion, and so you think running over yourself, you'd be like, hey, a wake up call, and
Yeah.
it's time to, figure this stuff out. And
But not so, Jess.
not so, and then he gets arrested 2 more times for drunk driving, including the latest recently in 2023.
Right.
So this guy just went on to keep having more DWIs after DWIs. And like you said, that one case should have been his first in 2009, and why the 2011 case was also called his first DWI.
And we don't know. Sometimes they'll plead down, right? Say, well,
Yeah.
I'll plead to this, but let's call it our first. I have no idea how those negotiations work sometimes with the prosecutors, but you would think in our state, the prosecutors would never allow you to call your second when you're first. That seems
and you
insane.
would, and you would think that after your first, if you haven't learned your lesson,
Yeah.
this is when we really should start going after them.
This is also one of those ones where you say, I wish they would just lock this guy up and throw away the key, because I drive on the roads, my kids drive on the roads or on the roads. Everyone we care about and love, everyone drives, right? And they put people at such risk. There's also a part of me that just feels like, wow, when you look at this sort of history, and this guy's been put in jail each of these times, that there really is just an addiction problem that he can't get past this. So there is a part of me that feels like I don't really have an answer for that. And, if you go to treatment and you can't get, you can't even with treatment beat this disease, I'm not sure what the outcome is.
Yeah.
So.
And I also, this was 2008, where we had a little bit more access to where we could go and interview these people and say, hey, are you, do you feel any remorse for this? Do you have,
Yeah, we would not be allowed to do that probably today as you walk out of the court, take a camera in the courthouse. Yeah.
It's a little tighter restrictions now.
Yeah.
Since this was such a long time ago.
So a tough one, and we hope we never see this gentleman, Roy Aguilar, again in any of our crime files. Hopefully it gets to a point where this problem is behind him.
Before we leave, if we can go back, this 15 years ago, tell the Jessica back then to lay off the blue eyeshadow.
I gotta say,
much watching these
I'm going to be
videos
honest, folks.
from so long ago.
I'm going to be honest. I'm a fan. I was a fan. I liked it then. It was working for you, Jess. Keep it up. So we thank you very much for watching this latest episode of New Mexico Crime Files. We'll see you next time.